This program is brought to you by Stanford University. Please visit us at stanford.edu.
This presentation is delivered by the Stanford Center for Professional Development, providing graduate-level education to working professionals, online, on campus, and on-site. For more information, please visit study.stanford.edu.
This week, we have Joe McKay and Greg Niemeyer from Berkeley, who are in the art department and also in the Berkeley Institute of Design. And Greg was here at Stanford for a few years. He had something called the SUDAC, Stanford University Digital Arts Center.
That's right.
And was doing great stuff. We collaborated on a project back then, and he has since been doing great stuff at Berkeley, and they're going to give you a sort of tour, multimedia extravaganza of some of the things they've been working on there. Great.
Well, thank you very much, Terry, for having us here, for inviting us across the bay. It's a pleasure to be here. Today, we are going to talk about the elusive question of whether games can improve human beings. And normally, speakers, when they come to events like this, they start talking about all the things they're really good at. But I, in the spirit of improvement, am going to start talking about things I'm not very good at. Mostly driving and biking. When I drive, my wife tells me I'm very uncautious. I take too many risks. I drive too fast. I turn too sharp corners. I brake too suddenly. And all those things. And when I bike, I do the same thing. I drive really fast, and especially downhill. And I take very sudden turns, and I don't stop at stop signs sometimes. Very bad. I'm going to change that from now on. And I figure I'm pretty safe because when I'm biking, I'm not driving at the same time, so I'm never going to run into my own driver. and I'm protected from my own weakness because there's no two of me. I'm not going to collide into myself. However, there are probably many people out there who drive like me and bike like me, and eventually these risks are going to come haunt me. These risks I'm going to take are going to come haunt me. And the risks I'm taking are risks in which I'm in which I'm operating so fast that I can't predict what's going to happen next, and I don't have time to react. And if I don't have time to react and I can't predict what happens next, we get accidents. Much like this magazine, Ambidextrous, talks about danger, right? Danger comes from misperceptions of situations, and if we always perceived everything correctly, there would be no dangers, no risks, no surprises whatsoever. So today, Joe McKay and I are going to talk about some of the projects we did to address modifications of behaviors through gameplay and modifications of behavior through art. For me as an artist, when I make art, I produce new kinds of stereotypes, new kinds of ways of perceiving the world, and those hopefully help us become more aware of the world we live in, or show us at least different ways of being in the world, and those different ways of being in the world produce essential alternatives to behavior. We need to have many different options to choose from. So with those topics in mind, we're going to talk about some of our projects, and this will lead to the discussion of our current project, which is going to be played here for the very first time, and it doesn't have a title yet. So we're going to talk about the titles of all the games we developed so far, and how we developed them and what they're all about. And then eventually we ask you to give us the title for our new game. It doesn't have a name yet, so you're going to have to name it. So you're going to have a task there, okay? So Joe, in your artwork, is that true as well, that you try and perceive new, or propose new ways of being in the world when you make projects available to people?
I think so, definitely. I mean, in the art process, sometimes you don't realize you've done that. At least with my project, I don't realize I've done that until I'm showing it, until it's already over.
Right.
I think I'm describing something that's not a learning process, and I realize at the end that I am. So it's like by the end, I realize, oh, this is really all about something completely different than I thought when I was starting out. Some projects I know from beginning to end, I know how it's gonna read. But
I guess that's what's beautiful about artists, right? They don't need to know what they're embarking on in the beginning. Whereas when you design something, typically you try to solve a problem that is pretty well defined. Whereas as artists, we don't try to solve any problems at all.
No, as an artist, if you've solved a problem, it's like, oh, bonus.
So speaking of bonus, why don't we bring up your screen and start with your first project that you want to talk about? Yeah.
Sure. Which do you want to talk about the?
Start historically.
Start historically. Oh, yeah. Start with the color game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Back here. So this is a piece that I did in 2003. I guess it's probably what it says in the video. It's a game that I made that's about mixing color. So it's a two-player game. Each player gets a red, green, and blue slider, and so it's RGB color mixing. And the object is there's your color and there's a target color. So the target color you're trying to mix to, and then there's your opponent, and they're trying to mix the target color too. So the first person to hit that target color wins the round, and then there's several different rounds. In each round, the goal is the same: match the target color before your opponent, but the animations are different. The design of the level is different, so they get more difficult optically as the levels increase. So I'll show documentation of that. You can see what's going on anyways. Let's see. So this is the splash screen at the start that just shows what the instructions are. Yeah.
So I'm here adjusting my colors now.
Yeah.
Can we get the lights off the screen a little bit? So the screen is dark. There we go. Yeah.
So this is level 1. It's just like a map, and it's really just a sort of the introductory level. I said this is 2003 because the date keeps changing because I keep making new levels, and sort of in spite of myself. Once I had the core dynamics, the engine down, then it was really fun to design because you start dreaming new levels and then wake up and make them during the day. It's really fun. It's a Mac, and it's using a breakout box called the EasyIO, and the programming is all done in Director. The thing that happened to me with this game, the thing I learned about this game when I started showing it is how I didn't expect it to be as addictive as it was. And I thought I was making this fun, and it's got this kind of art world reference to sort of like a color field painting you can play. It's abstract expressionism, the game, you know. So I thought that would be kind of the hook, but and I really enjoyed playing it, but it was incredibly gratifying having shown it and having people stay for an hour and a half and go and get drunk and come back and play more. And I did show it in a show that was just like a sort of like a 12-hour show. It was like a big party kind of show, and there were a lot of other video game art projects, and there was a lot of weed and a lot of drinking, and that was actually the best experience I've had showing the piece. I do also, when I show it with like a couch or comfy chairs or something, so I'm really trying to encourage the people who are on deck to play to just sit and watch and hang out as well as play. So it's good as an audience member as well as a player, and the game changes a lot between the two.
To me, this game was fascinating because when I played it, I noticed that the last few levels of color are very hard to nail properly. So let's say you have 255 values of red, green, and blue, and you sort of can get to the first rough approximation of what the color is supposed to be like, the target color is supposed to be like. But the last few steps are practically invisible, especially depending on the projector quality, etc. It's very hard to distinguish between, say, red 254 and red 253 for a human being, but it's very easy for a computer, and the computer will just tell you did it wrong until you do it right. So there's an important graphic here that I'm going to draw in this corner, if you can see it. So if you assume this circle here to be our decision space, this perception space in which we can make decisions, well, the game starts here, but then the Thank you. That's good. So the decision space is in here, and the person playing is trying to navigate and make the right decisions standing somewhere in here. But then the game pulls you out of your decision perception space and makes you make decisions in a zone of perception that you actually don't have. So this is the perception, this is the distinction between the last few levels, right? And so you end up operating in this zone where you know you're in control, but you actually don't get any sensory feedback for the decisions you make. And I think that's a very important mental condition where we still go on, but we really have no basis to make decisions. And essentially we're hitting the target randomly at the very last phase, right? And I think games can bring us into that space and let us explore the risks of that space without any danger, without any damage.
In terms of gameplay, also,
okay, we're done with that. Let's get the screen back down.
I had to create a difficulty knob so that you could crank it back to easy, play it on hard, but then crank it back to easy if you got completely exasperated. But also, exasperation was part of the fun. So
So, any more closing questions about this particular game? So we're going to move on to the next game otherwise.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. So if I can have the screen back again. I'm going to show another thing that I thought was important about this game was that you used a somewhat physical interface, these three knobs which are mysterious and we don't really know exactly what they do, but they're a more tactile interface than the keyboard. The keyboard is a very stiff experience and rigorous experience. It's an experience that's always the same. So although we may be looking at different things on our laptops and experiencing different things intellectually, and physically it's always the same experience. And somebody asked me once, why do all websites feel the same? And then we decided they all feel the same because we all touch them in the same way. The tactile experience of the website is always exactly the same. So that game breaks a little bit out of that. And when I developed the game Organum, I tried to break out of that paradigm as well, and created a voice interface for a navigation through the human vocal cord system from the bottom of the lung to the tip of the tongue. And there was a model of the bottom of the lung and it went through the trachea to the tip of the tongue. And people could navigate that space by singing to it. So you became a little wave of sound inside your own body or inside a larger body, and it looked something like this. This was presented in 2005 in San Francisco and then in many, many other places around the world. So,
yes, 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 no, yes, no, yes, no, no.
Here we hired 3 vocal performers to do this inaugural performance of the game. And their names are going to show up in just a second. This is Aurora Josephson, classically trained in singing, taking very high pitches to the game, a huge tonal range. And so as they were singing, they were controlling each one axis of the 3-dimensional space. So one person had 2 microphones to control up and down, one had 2 microphones to control left and right, and one person had 1 microphone to control forward. This is Seth Augustus, who's a Tuvan throat singer. And here's a beatbox artist named Kid Beyond. Is there more volume? And so as you can see, he's singing into 1 microphone and makes the thing go forward. And now he has to take turns to steer a little bit, up, down, left, right. And then on the screen you see these little dots are pathogens. They're disease-generating pathogens, and the task in the game is to eradicate all the disease-generating pathogens in the lung, clear the throat, as it were. This game operates on several levels, of course. One level is the challenge to hit the pathogens and to just control the thing. And the other is a social performance of 3 people playing together and developing dialogues like yes, no. And on the third level is a performance to a group, because there's an audience that's watching what you're doing. And so you perform for that audience as well. So there's at least 3 levels of interaction there. One being game, the second being team, and the third being audience. Another benefit of the game is that people are very patiently listening to experimental music and without even knowing. And so that was maybe the best benefit of this game, is that they were willing to sit in a room listening to an opera singer, or to even throat singer and a beatboxer singing together. That sounds like strange music to me, but because of the visual reference and the game challenge, they were sitting there taking it in very avidly.
Did you give them any instruction other than you hired people who
No. So these people actually, these 3 performers rehearsed a little bit because of the public pressure, I guess. But,
Sure.
but the game itself has no instructions whatsoever. The way it's set up, you just have 5 microphones and there's projected screen and no labels, nothing. And you're supposed to try out the microphones and see what happens and then slowly get into the game. It's very important to me that the games have self-extracting rules that people get engaged in and gradually discover. The rule set is really the place where the art in the game resides, the set of rules that you create. And so for people to discover those rules means to explore the meaning of the game. My favorite players were 3 kids, 3 little sisters. They played this game in Canada, of course. And they loved it, and they went home, and the next day the parents of these 3 kids called me and said, you know, our daughters really love this game, but we have this problem. Now they're singing to the television, and they're very upset that the television isn't responding to them. So it was a very important mediatic experience as well, that the media acknowledges your presence and sort of responds to your wishes. And the kids really like that. I think we have enough of that. So do you want to bring up your next game?
Sure.
Yeah. So that was Organum, and from Organum I learned that team play is very nice, it's very generative, it's very satisfying to people to start interacting with each other. But I also learned that people are somewhat shy about singing, and so for some people it wasn't fun to play because they were too embarrassed about singing. Which is your next one. Oh, you got the next CD.
Yeah, this one's on its own.
And this was programmed in Max MSP with just a large audio interface sound box to capture all the sounds and digitize them rapidly and get the data out of them.
So as I played the color game, I became its biggest fan, and I became as addicted to it as my players were. And whenever I would install it, I would go and install it for free just so I could set it up and play it again. And my sister actually got me a show because she'd seen it in my studio and wanted to play it. And so she got me a show in Toronto so I could come up there and so she could play the game, which I thought was really nice. But then when the game was, I'd shown it a few times, I was sort of getting sick of having that be what I was doing, and I made this piece last year, biking out to the studios where our studios are in Berkeley, and I was looking at the sunset, and I was just like, the color gradient of the sunset was just off the hook beautiful, and I was thinking about the game, and I was thinking about this skill I have playing the color game, that I'm the best in this I'm the best person in the world at this thing that I made myself. This is very unfair. And I was thinking about that in terms of all video games. It's like I have the same trouble when I finish, I finish Final Fantasy, and I've got this incredible skill now with my PlayStation controller that's not, it might be sort of transferable to in the next game, but I know this sort of very subtle ways to control the characters, which doesn't translate in my real life. And every time I finish a video game, I think, why didn't I spend that much time playing the piano? Because now I could play the piano instead of having, to go and spend $50 and learn a whole new configuration of what the next game is. So I thought, okay, well, I'll make myself a game that uses my skills that I have from the color game. So I'll make myself like the last level. And I had used the same hardware that I made for the color game and took it out and projected on the side of a barn. And I've got 3 color gradient fields here, and I'm mixing them live to the sunset. And then I've got a sprite, which is you can see here I'm starting to adjust my sprites and make them in the right spot. So I have a sprite, which is the telephone line, and a sprite, which is the curve of the landscape. And then the 3 gradient fields, and I can adjust also where the gradient fields match. So I can go, this is blue to orange, and this is orange to red, and this is red to whatever, and I'm mixing those sort of as I go. And I did it I mean, now it exists as documentation this way, but I also did it as an intervention. I call it an intervention rather than a performance. So the performance you have to advertise, and then the sunset has to be good. But if it's an intervention, I can just show up and do it. So I did it as an intervention. I did it 5 times, and each time I would come back to the studio and rewrite the software and make it a little more iterative, or, oh, I have to put in the telephone line, that'll be so nice, or, and then also each time I would get better at it. So I was getting better at in terms of adjusting the game as I went, but getting better also.
You're putting a cloud there right now, I see.
Yeah, there's a cloud coming in. Yeah, and the one I finally, then I videotaped the penultimate one to this. I videotaped it and got it back in the studio and went, God, that's terrible. I thought I was doing really well, and I was really doing horrible. And I realized I have to mix it if I'm going to document it. I have to check in the camera now and then, because the camera is seeing all this stuff very differently than my eye is seeing it all. So this one I actually didn't look as good as the penultimate one if you were there, but looked better if you were. And you can see here at times I would realize, oh, I need a new sprite or something, so I'd stop the program, start it again, get it back going again. So.
What are you putting there?
This is right at the very end, actually. I think this is just a 5-minute clip. So this was actually taking different sections of the day through the day, and I'm putting in a star at the end because there's a planet that's actually like Mercury or Venus or Mars. I don't remember which, but I decided, oh, I'll make a new one. So I'm sticking that in the night sky. So I make a whole little constellation. The actual video, this is just a clip of sections of the night, but the actual video is 35 minutes long, and it goes from a point where there's just sort of too much ambient light for the illusion to really work, and then sort of transfer this moment where it's like, whoa, it really does start to kind of flip a little bit, and then here where it's too dark at the end. So that's the very first scene, and there you can see it's not quite taking it on. So in terms of like my art career, this is a single channel video that I will distribute and show and whatever. But then I also sort of keep the idea of being able to do this again somewhere as a performance or as an intervention as sort of part of my vocabulary as an artist, my stable of tricks. So.
Yeah, yeah. I love that game. I thought we had one less planet now, but I guess with your game now we have one more planet.
Yeah, I put him back in.
Yeah. So. One thing that was very important to me about this is a solo performance that you're doing now, and nobody can play the game as well as you can. This particular game, right?
This particular game.
And with Organum, I went a little bit the other way. Instead of performing as a solo artist, I more and more started collaborations, and I was very fortunate to work with my students from School of Information at Berkeley, Dan Perkel and Ryan Shaw, and from the Department of Performance, Jane McGonigal, who is busy inventing alternate reality games right now. So we all worked on Organum together, and as a result of Organum being shown around, I got an invitation to show the game in Egypt. And there's a special gallery in Egypt called the Townhouse Gallery, and they have programs to show contemporary art in the city of Cairo. But then they also take artists and try to get them to work with prisons in Egypt or with kids in poor neighborhoods. And so they took me to a neighborhood called Fustat, which is a very, it's actually an old part of the city of Cairo. It's a beautiful part of the city of Cairo, but there's a lot of imbalance of wealth in Egypt, and so there's a lot of kids that grow up essentially needing to work from the age 4 up. So this Townhouse Gallery started a center that is called a after-work center for children. So after the children start working at age 4 or 5, and after a day of work, after 8 hours of work, they go to this children's center, and instead of going to an after-school center, they go to an after-work center, and they play, and they are supposed to study a little bit, but they're really exhausted, so they're not in a really good situation to learn. And this gallery asked me to put up Organum in that youth center, in that children's after-work center. And they were having a huge soccer game going on when I showed up there. And you know, it was very dusty and dirty, the whole place, but you know, it wasn't quite constructed. They ran out of money halfway through building the center, so the first floor was finished, but the second floor was just open. And the gallery people told me, well, this is your show right here. And I said, okay. And I carted out this very card there and put it in my computer. And I realized that, you know, the kids came up to me and said things like, you know, how are you doing and who are you and where are you from? They spoke a little bit of English like that. And they kept saying pen, pen, pen. I was like, why do they call me pen? And the people explained to me, they say pen because it's an English word for pen, and they really want pens. These kids are, you know, 5, 6 years old, and they don't have any pens. And that's what they really wanted most, was pens, so they could draw and learn, I guess. So I realized very quickly that I couldn't just put up the game and leave it at that. Instead, I wanted to do something much more interactive. So I set up the game the way it was intended to be, and I asked them to change the game, to make it better. And they had lots of suggestions, and they said we shouldn't be swimming through the rings. That's not very interesting. How about let us swim through the Nile? And then so we worked on a story about the crocodiles, and some of that I had prepared already, but a lot of it was really brought into the game space by the kids. And so I would sit there all day and program my game and let them try it and see if they liked it. And if they liked it better, we kept the version. If they didn't like it, we threw it away. And the most important thing is that they could see me programming, and they could see, number one, that games are constructed. They're not just made, and they don't just come with PlayStation. They're actually things that people can make. And I don't know if they learned much programming from me, because I'm terrible at programming, but they did learn a lot about the makeability, the feasibility of these things. And they also learned about the responsiveness, that you can actually change things. It was a very important experience for them to go into a place where an adult would change things according to their wishes, so I was told. And so they brought in crocodiles, and they brought in boats, and they brought in this idea that we had to go collect flowers on the Nile. And so we gradually made a new game, and that was called, it was named by them as well, it's called Good Morning Flowers. And there's a documentary being made about that whole experience right now. It's not finished yet, but I brought the game back and had another version that was developed for the San Francisco Film Festival, International Film Festival, and there the game was played not by microphones like the old Organum, but by cell phones, because I remember I told you that people weren't happy to sing too much in public. So I found out that people are perfectly happy to do anything with their cell phone. A lot of people have fear of microphones, fear of surveillance, but they'll tell their best friend in the bus, you know, their entire intimate lives, and everybody in the bus listens along, and they somehow think, because it's my cell phone, it's an intimate experience, right? And they don't realize everybody else is listening to them and laughing about them. So,
crying.
Or crying,
Thank
or
you.
you know, writing checks, here's for your mother so she gets better and whatever. So no, they don't realize that at all. So it's another case of indexical orders being shifted, and we'll talk more about indexical orders later. But I found that when people sing into the cell phone, they sing all day long. They have no embarrassment at all. And so that was this game looks like now. So can we get the lights down a little lower? Yeah, so the game was then translated into Arabic as well. And so this is a recording I did in my lab with some friends. And you see them calling up with their cell phones here. They call the Good Morning Flowers number. You can still call it, but of course the game's not running anywhere right now. And they call Skype, and Skype sends the sound signals into this computer and uses them to change the wind. There's a little boat here, and the boat gets blown left and right on the Nile according to the wind you make blowing into your cell phone. And that's nice because the cell phone has a certain lag, about 200 milliseconds, sometimes with Skype a little more. And that lag is well absorbed by the notion that we're blowing a boat across the water. We know that wind doesn't have immediate effect, but it sort of has a delayed effect. And so that works, that matches well. That's a congruent moment there. And so here the two kids are playing this game and literally blowing into their phones for fun. And they collect all these flowers, which are the blue lilies of the Nile, but of course then the crocodiles come and knock down the boat, and the flowers sink. And on the shore, you see various types of towers. They're victory towers. They're towers that are built to commemorate victories in the Arab world. And they have different styles that reflect different periods. So the river actually takes us through a trip of time. It takes us through an architectural sort of experience to see what types of towers were built at what types of times. And that was a little learning element that was built in. But the true learning experience here is not the one I intended. The true learning experience is that sometimes you have to collaborate. And when you collaborate, sometimes doing nothing is exactly the right thing to do. Like you see here, the kids are blowing, and sometimes both get excited, and when the crocodile comes, they both blow like crazy to avoid the obstacle. But of course, you can only avoid the obstacle if one person blows loud and the other person is absolutely silent. Then you can make quick movements. Did you ever play this version?
I never played it with the cell phones. I only played it with the microphone.
Yeah. So here now we enter the Ottoman period of the game. And then the towers change. You see the design of the towers is a little different. This again is in MaxMSP using jitter and OpenGL as a graphics environment.
Great losing graphic.
Yeah, people were very happy about losing. It turns out that when in video game research, that people really like the moment when they lose control and they are in free fall and they fall off the cliff, or in this case, they sink and the boat drowns, and it's a satisfying feeling for some reason, and so I think that's very interesting as well. So eventually if we watch the end of this movie, we'll see how they win. But I think we got the idea. Yeah.
Were the people always together when they were cell phoning?
So in the theater we played this game, and that was fabulous. In the San Francisco Film Festival, we played this game in a theater where it said no cell phones, turn off your cell phones, and we had to go tape up the no part and turn on your cell phones, please. And then people in the audience would call up the game. We showed this several times during a shorts show. So there was a movie, and then people could play the game again. And it was very, very interesting because, again, we had this dynamic of the team and the performance and the larger group. So two people would start playing the game, calling in and start playing, and then the audience around them would listen to what they had to say. And it very quickly became not only a fun game to play, but also a conduit for commenting on the movie they just saw before. Instead of blowing, they would say, I think the movie we just saw was terrible. What did you think? Oh, watch out, there's a crocodile. And they would go back and forth like that. And so it became a tool for self-expression because the things they would say in the front, of course, would be broadcast through the PA system of the theater in THX, right? Full surround sound.
It would be so much fun if it was a television show. So the game was on TV,
and you could call in
and
play. Yeah. So this was again developed with Ryan Shaw and Dan Perkel, and we had a lot of fun with that. Hey, they just won, huh? So we're done here.
Yeah.
Yeah, here are the credits for it. And so the kids in Cairo named this game Good Morning Flowers because they wanted it to be a positive, cheerful name, and they have thought the idea of waking up and saying good morning to the flowers was somehow wholesome. And so I thought that was a great title. Now you guys have to come up with a title for the game we're here to present today.
Yeah,
right?
Everyone must, at this point we're about halfway through, so everyone must have at least 2 titles ready for us.
All right. Did you want to talk about another game?
Should I show Big Ups quick?
Yes.
Yeah.
Why don't you? Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah. And what I was going to show is, I was going to show Bounds too. So let's do that.
Yeah. Okay. Good. We'll keep it. So here's my brilliant website, and this is a game that I made in site-specific. I don't very often work site-specifically, and my friend was curating this show at Long Island University in Brooklyn, and he said, I know you don't make work site-specific, and you could either say, I don't make work site-specific, or you could say, screw that, I'll just do it anyway. So if he, as a curator, was willing to say, screw that, you should just do it anyways, I figured I should too. But he knew my work, and he wanted me to not completely abandon myself. So we created this game, I created this game, where there's a pad like just the same pad you have at a supermarket to open the doors. And it's just outside the doors, so it's placed just sort of beside where the real pad would be in the supermarket. And it's in an open courtyard, and the TVs are inside. And on the TVs are there's a platform. Here, I'll use the pointer.
Here, use the stick.
Here's the stick. Oh. For those of you on the internet, I'm pointing with the stick. This is the what you control when you jump on the pad. That it coils down. It's sort of a very Hanna-Barbera kind of action. Oh, I'm using the wrong hand. And so this, as you jump, it coils, and as you land, it pops back up. So the longer you jump, the higher your coil, the more you'll pop the ball in the air, which is this here. So the ball will shoot up in the air. The object of the game is to get the balls to stick on the top of the top monitor. And as they stick, then they drip. And the harder you hit them, the more they stick, the more they drip. So you get this sort of raining. And then you get a new ball, which is a different color, and also a little bit heavier. So eventually, you can't do it on one jump. You have to time your jump to propel it even further. So it's, and I really, partly this came out of some earlier pieces I'd done, partly the color game, partly another game I'd made also with microphones too, where I really liked the participant getting seduced into becoming the performer, kind of inadvertently becoming the performer. So you kind of jump on it for a little while, and you kind of get the hang of it, and then you realize, oh, there's a real prize here for me to really become an extrovert on this machine. And also then the inside-outside plays with that too. This is a university campus, so behind here are all dormitories. So and students could watch, and they could see out their windows, and they could see the people jumping, but not the screens. So then it became this kind of performance for everybody, where it's a similar sort of private public. You're in the sphere of the game, and it makes perfect sense what you're doing. But most of the audience who was watching you had no idea what you were doing. You were just jumping up and down in the middle of the square. So I really wanted to play with that. Oh, and there's a quick time. Idiot.
Yeah, let's play it.
No, it's fun.
Sound?
I don't think there is sound, actually.
Boom. Boom.
Yeah. So kids really thought that it was how hard you land, of course, not how high you land. So people were jumping. The curator said, and the other thing is I had the show ran 24 hours a day for 4 months. So it never got shut off. So you could come home to the dorm drunk again. My work is all about drinking. You could come home drunk and play the game before you went up to the dorm. So I really wanted it to be this piece for the students as much as for the art community. And but the nice story is the woman, the curator who was working at the museum, who had organized the whole show, she said she'd come out often in the morning and there'd be a chair next to it, which meant kids were like jumping off the chair to like. And the other thing that happened too is as I was installing it, I installed it in the summer before school started, and there were all these youth groups who were using the residences for their youth group. And it was just like that baseball movie, the Build It and They Will Come movie. I'm like making this video game, and I've got it installed. I'm kind of having to program it on the spot because I'm changing it depending on, in this new situation. And I'd look around, and there'd be like 5 12-year-olds just like, like waiting, and they'd be really mad that I wasn't done. Like they were like, well, isn't it working? It's like, so it was great because I had all these play testers, but it was also a little bit creepy. They're kind of children of the Cornish.
So did you get any kids bouncing around in supermarkets after this?
That's
complaining how come the balloons didn't go to the top?
That would be great.
Yeah.
Here, you can have the conch.
Do I need the stick?
Yeah.
Okay. So all of this shows, I think, that we learn pretty much everything we know from games, as Roger Caillois and Huizinga would have us believe, to anthropologists who studied games in the 1930s and 1960s relatively. Huizinga commented that games even precede culture per se, because even animals play games. And so I'm very fond of that notion, because I feel like games are such wonderful places to explore new ways of being in the world, and then later on we can apply those experiences to real-world situations. And so there's a lot of learning going on in any game, but of course every now and then we'd like to make a game that has a specific learning goal, and those games are known as serious games, although I have to say I think all games are very, very serious. I engaged in a group collaboration project with Ken Goldberg and Irene Chien and Jane McGonigal for Isaiah 2006, this last Isaiah in San Jose. And this game was called Bounce, and it was addressing the problem of seniors feeling isolated. So in a lot of senior homes, people apparently feel like they have no chance to talk to the quote-unquote younger generation, let alone to their own younger family members. And we also found that a lot of young people who are 25 years old and younger might be less interested in talking to seniors than to peer groups, than to people of their own age group. And we found that there's a lot of experience values that get lost in the process, because this idea of transferring knowledge from the older generation to the younger generation is essentially corrupted by the cult of youth, by this idea that when you're young you have to stay with the young and that young is great and so forth. So we tried to instigate a new kind of cult of the senior and the experience value rather than the novelty value with this game that's called Bounce San Jose, and it's a common experience game. And the way this game would work is that we built a call center in San Jose with seniors from various that happen to live near this community center, this senior community center. And we gave the phone number for the call center to conference participants in the Isaiah conference. And all those conference participants were invited to call up the experience desk. And the experience desk was staffed by these seniors who were all 65 and older. And they had the task to find common experiences with the younger people who called. So for example, I'm just going to add this in here real quick, and I'm going to put you as my partner, Joe, okay? Yep. For the game, and so we can add in your number. And do you want me to add in your actual number?
I was born in 1919.
Okay, so you're the senior.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're performing as the senior.
Sweet.
So my home is Zurich, and your home is?
San Jose.
San Jose, yes. So you played that game many times, right? So because you called in and made the call center get busy and stuff like that. So Bounce San Jose and Greg with Joe, we have 126 years of joint experience, right? Because we add up the ages of the two people, I guess. And so it asks questions like, what is a game you both used to play and win? And so we now can, on the phone, have this conversation and find out.
Did that come up randomly?
Yeah.
That's funny. I mean, there's lots of questions like, what do you like to eat for breakfast? And what game do we both play and win? That's so in keeping with our talk.
Did you play and win Mastermind often?
I did play and win Mastermind.
Okay, me too.
It's too easy.
Let's put Mastermind.
No, I don't know what you're talking about.
So when you click Bounce, and of course the game tracks how long it takes you to answer the question, and then the little graphic here evolves and shows you how much time you spent on each question. And then we put all that in a database, and we analyze which types of questions generated the most intense bonds. And we just measure the intensity of the bond either by how quickly people found the common experience or how long they were talking about it. We don't actually know what the conversation was, but we know what the outcome of the conversation was. Right. Then we generate a new question. So we have a beautiful database of these kinds of conversations, and when you finish this, your latest result gets posted here. So it turns into a poem like, latest result is an internship abroad. We would like to spend a vacation on the Fiji Islands. We bite our own lips when it starts to rain in summer. Isn't that a beautiful line? We bite our own lips when it starts to rain in summer. We walked away from our parents, a blind worm. Somebody asked if she should quit school or not. Lake of Zurich, Manners, a clay vase, September 12, 2006. That is the summary of the common experiences of two people who played before. We don't know who, but that's it. Now this game looks like a serious game, and it performs like a serious game, but the trouble is that people 25 and younger just didn't want to call our experience center. They didn't want to do that. It was very hard to get people to call. So it reminded me that one of the things about serious games that's really important is that the learning charge, the transformation that you wish to implement in your players cannot be the subject of the game. It has to be hidden somewhere. And so enter our new game, which we don't have a name for yet.
Right.
This game was about trying to get people to be more circumspect. It's about pollution, about being less polluting, about trying not to apply different values to yourself, to your own behavior, than you apply to a nation. For example, why do people think global warming is a problem that governments should deal with? It's a problem that people have to deal with, like you and me, right? And so it's a problem about finding the right frame of reference and not switching values when different frames of reference come up. And it's a game about simply paying attention to things. And
you don't have to bring the screen back up, but it's also about your chalk graphic on the board. It's very much playing with that.
It's very much going into a, yes, it's very much going, it's also in a physically embodied interface, and it's very much going into this region of types of things we didn't even know we were in control of. So it's also about finding new interfaces. You know, you found an interface with the color game, I found an interface with the voice, and you had a game with the voice as well, the audio Pong, right? Mm-hmm. So now this game is about a completely different sense. It's about the sense of balance. And by a sense of balance, we simply mean the sense that you have of tilting to one side and almost tipping over. And it has another aspect to it, which is that when people get older, they in fact don't exercise their sense of balance very much, and they tend to fall over more often, and then they tend to break their bones more often. So this game is also supposed to help us perfect and enhance our sense of balance. But we'll see about that. Let's just try it out.
Yeah.
So what we need to do is switch here. Okay. Should I restart it, or should I just leave it as is?
I think it's going to work as is, but
okay.
Maybe you should restart it.
Let's see. So do we have any volunteer players? Okay. Okay. Actually, we had planned a volunteer player who never played this game before. But is it okay? Yeah. You want to go for it? Okay. So Laura, you want to do it? Okay. Now you can do it next. Okay. One of the important things about games is that you can't force people to play, because if they are forced to, it's not volunteer. It's not a free game anymore, right? So all you need to do, Laura, is step on the platform. There's a platform here that the internet people can't see. And the moment you do that, it senses your weight. And now, since we said we have to play the game without giving people instructions, we want to see how you do without us saying anything at all. There's one hint: the game is extremely subtle. So help her out if you know what the rules are.
Whoa.
Trying to get into the thing? You might want to lean forward. Oh, no, forward. All right, good. Now, aim well.
Now aim well. Be better at it.
Can they go through the rings?
Yeah, you want to go through the rings. Yeah, that's right. See, so far we gave you no instructions whatsoever. Oh, just lean forward.
Yeah, you don't have to hit it. It'll just bounce off your. Let's see.
Yeah, good. You got it there. Just keep lean. Yeah, there you go. Oh, a little less. Okay. You can do it. I don't know about your sense of balance. Okay, keep trying. Just try to keep it steady first, and then once it's steady, maybe you can control it better. There you go. Okay. Why did? Yeah, just lean forward. Maybe take a step forward on the path.
Take like a tiny step forward, so your center of gravity is a little more in the middle, but
Yeah,
you're still just standing there.
There you go.
There you go. Now if you lean forward. Just directly forward. There you go.
Yeah. Oh! All right. What? You want to give up already? You know, when you get off the plates, the game ends. That's it. So, do you want to try next?
Sure. Why not?
You still in? Okay, good. So, thank you, Laura. You did really well. Nice gameplay, but no. Now we know he's got it. No, he didn't. What's your name? Nader. Okay, Nader, go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. See how you can predict when it'll happen, right? That's a nice feeling. And now, okay, close enough. Now notice how the bars go away. Did anybody notice that yet? And the bars all have the right color, so you know which one comes next, but he's playing so hard, it's very hard for him to pay attention to which bar is coming next. All right. Now, of course, the game gets more difficult as we go, right? All right, one more. Nate, are you in athletics here?
Not really.
No? Oh, you gave up. You gave up. Did somebody else want to try? Hey, come on down. Yeah. So,
It's very subtle.
It's very subtle, huh? Yeah. How did it make you feel?
Well, you can't concentrate on anything except just stabilizing the platform.
Yeah, yeah.
I can barely keep track of what the pillars are doing.
So, but the experience is very interior, isn't it? It's not, so that's one thing we were after is when we played, we really like that feeling of something going on in your body that you don't even have a proper name for, really. It's almost like biofeedback, but it's not invasive. What's your name?
Jack.
Jack, I think you're going to score really high because you're playing the game barefoot.
Yeah.
It's like true skateboarders.
Did you come barefoot or did you take your shoes off back
It's been raining a lot.
Oh, wrong hole. Uh-oh.
Oh, no.
It pushes you back. Well, now that you've seen Joe's level design in the color game, you can imagine what kinds of color levels, what kind of difficulty levels come up here later on. It's pretty compelling. All right.
Would it be feasible to add in a force feedback so that when you feel the ball bounce, maybe get a little kick on the platform?
Sure, yeah,
Nice
yeah,
idea.
yeah. So you feel it like
There's a little
something-
solenoid could just knock you back.
Oh, look at the precision work there. Don't forget to breathe.
Oh, there's a title. There's a title.
Don't forget to breathe. All right.
Oh.
Did it fool you? Yeah, maybe we have a problem there, but I don't think so. Now we should get a green one. Yeah, there we go. It's doing the right thing. So we finished coding this game last night, so this is really the first time we're testing it in public. So.
We haven't seen it. It's freaking me out because it's been like this big instead of. It's like, whoa, it's so huge.
All right. So I think we're almost out of time, so we ask of you one thing. Give us a title for this game. You got any suggestions? Yeah. Balance ball. I like it. Yeah. As in, instead of like a square ball, this is balance ball. Yeah, yeah, balance ball. We write that down.
Yeah.
Okay, balance ball.
What's yours? Trampoline. Nice.
And lifesaver.
Lifesaver. Trampoline.
Okay.
We can't use trampoline because I'm making a game in my studio right now with trampolines.
Oh, it looks great from back here, too. Any other suggestions? What?
Oh, you ain't seen nothing yet.
Oh, this is just the beginning. Good.
Nice. Oh.
Have you experimented with
Say what?
non-square platforms, say a circle?
Yeah, we tried out. The first version was triangles. It didn't work as well for some physical reason. I don't know why. And then we thought about circles, but somehow the square works best.
It's easier to step on a square than a circle because you intuitively know where the corners are. Whereas circle, we were worried that it would be easy to fall off, although you managed to fall off the square. Sorry.
Now you see, this is a very intellectual game. You're playing it all by shifting your head positions. There's a lot of head work there.
No.
Oh, good. All right, now watch out. Yeah, we didn't implement the rolling algorithm yet. If you know any tricks, let us know. have a hard time leaning left, huh? All right. All right, good job. So thank you. I think that's. Oh, we have till 2?
Yeah.
So
people can ask questions.
Oh, so we have some questions now? Yeah?
Yeah, sure.
All right. Do we have any?
No, I want to play them.
Okay, good. Anybody have any questions?
What's your C concept, design a new game or interactive system? Do you first think of the interface device, whether it's sliders or?
No, well, yes, when we go into the actual production of it, we think about the interface first. The interface always determines everything else in the game. The interface is the most important thing, and everything else should stem from that.
It looks so easy.
Well, yeah, he coded it, you know.
I know, yeah, it knows me.
Yeah.
Like, Joe!
It's got the magnetic power turned on, huh? No, it's actually, he played it many times. I would sit there and write the code, and it would crash, and then he would play it and test it again, and it would take turns. So we're pretty good at it by now. But he also stands perfectly still, so it looks effortless, right? So it's about doing less, and I think to answer your question, when we start designing a game, we think about the feeling, and the feeling is there's a certain elegance to doing as little as possible. You know, there's that. There's that line that, you know, you're using more energy than necessary, and that's embarrassing. If you use more energy than necessary, you're wasting it. And so this was a game that was trying to address that feeling of using just as much energy as it takes.
It seems like all of your designs so far are centered around non-standard interfaces, whether they're the sliders or the syncing. Or do you think there's still room for expansion in the standard QWERTY keyboard interactions?
Oh, yeah. Somebody interviewed me recently about Internet 2 and asked me, so what should we do with Internet 2? And I said, well, what you need to do is make it more embodied. We want data to have gravity. We want data to feel like it has weight. Then we want there to be more input into the, more human input into the interaction with websites. And then we want there to be, so we want more sensors. I want sensors in my chair that tell the website if I'm leaning forward or backward, and that change the size of the typeface depending on how close I am to the screen. Stuff like that, you know. I also want there to be more context, both on my end and on the end of the server. I want to know how hot the server is, and I want the website to know what my body temperature is. So there is actually more exchange and more embodiment. So these things are very important to us. Any other questions? Yeah?
So you talk about this decision space, and there's kind of a zone where one can discriminate pretty easily between their options. And there's this zone where they can't discriminate. And in this game, I can see that you can expand your zone of discrimination pretty quickly. In the color game, it seems like you could get, there really is a space that you can't discriminate. Is that?
Yeah, that's probably true. And we call this an adaptive game. In other words, there's two ways to make a game adaptive. One way is to have continuous level adaptation, and the other one is to have explicit level adaptation. So every time you score 4 rings, there's a new challenge that comes up. And of course, as we do that, we also modify the sensitivity of the plate. So first is at sensitivity 0.02, and at the end of the game, it's at sensitivity 0.08, which doesn't mean much to you, but you can see that it goes up, right? And so we make it more difficult to keep the center in balance as we progress the game. And so there's a feedback loop there. There's 2 feedback loops there, the level and the sensitivity of the input device. And as a result, we call this the optimization process. As a result, you end up in a zone of higher optimization. And so when you leave this game, theoretically, you'd be optimized to perform your balance operations more precisely and use less energy than you thought you needed. So what you're observing now is an aspect of gameplay, which has to do with mastery. That's always implied in a game. Is when you get good at it, the player that gets good at a game gets a certain extra credit. So now we're all like, Joe, go Joe, we can do it, you can clear it, and we respect him for his mastery, and those who played for the first time, we respect them for their courage. So another question.
As you succeed throughout the game, more challenges are introduced, and that's almost like penalizing successes.
No, those who are the best always need to work the hardest. Don't you know that? You're at Stanford, so. Yeah. They make it harder on purpose, you know. The result is that you're better trained, of course, right? So that means you're able to.
So Greg, can you tell us a little about 060606 this year? How'd that go?
I run a conference series since 10101, which happens on the exact matching date. So we'll do that until 12/12/12. And 060606 this year was dedicated to serious games. And so we, instead of creating a guest list and lecturers and keynote speakers, we invited everybody we knew and we thought might be interested in showing up for this little conference. And we organized a conference game. We developed a game in which people would get into teams and select speakers, and they talked about serious games. The main...
Sorry, Greg.
That's all right. It's all right. See, this shows how games address emotional levels of experience. It's very important to anchor, you know, insight in emotional levels. You can't just be rational about everything. So the main conclusion about this conference was that games that are serious need to embed their lessons deeply into the rules of the game rather than into the subject, and that everything that you learn from a game. All right, that was like 5 minutes. Good job.
Yeah, I know. I get my time down.
Yeah. Does anybody else want to try? Come on. This is the only time you'll get to play it unless it's going to be licensed by what is it?
Sony.
Sony, yeah.
Yeah.
A little extension to the PlayStation.
Yeah. Be the ball.
Be the ball.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good title too. Be the ball.
Here's a question. Do you have a question?
Yeah, so I'm curious. You seem to hint at throughout everything that you were presenting that discovery of the rules by the player is really important. Do you talk more about why that's the case? Or?
Because it has to do with the emergent gameplay concept. Okay, if I tell you, look, ABC are the rules, and this is what you have to do to win, it feels like a very structured and rigid environment. And when I say, when I seduce you to play by making pretty graphics and a sensitive interface and, you know, animation surplus, all these things that make games fun, and then you gradually explore the games, you own the rules, and you, in fact, often verbalize them differently. So if I asked Laura to say what the rules are, she would say it very differently than, say, Joe would say it. And that means you internalize them and make them your own. You have the experience and make it your own make it into your own knowledge by using your own words to describe it. And that's very important. It's like an emotional part of learning is discovery, right? You feel that you own the rules because you discovered them. You figured out how it works, right? It's like if you try to install something new in your computer and you figured out how it works, you have a certain sense of pride about that. And that's that mechanism that works there. I think it's very important that we do that. Sometimes we're just told what to do, and that's not the same. It's not the same satisfaction.
In the color game, I didn't give away that there were red, green, or blue sliders. You would have to come to that, but also it's light mixing rather than pigment mixing. So you also had to then, like, you would then start to learn that red and green are going to make yellow rather than brown, and that was counterintuitive if you haven't had color theory. If all you've done is mix pigment, then that's going to be backwards to you. But people would, if I would try and describe to them how mixing light is different than pigment, people's eyes would glaze over. But after 2 minutes of playing, they would be like intuitively getting it. And it's amazing that you can make light mixing intuitive if you haven't come to it, but you can't.
I think the intuitive is highly underrated in the Organum, the game, where people have to sing. There was no rules at all, and people often didn't know what they were doing, but they were still they're still winning. And that was a really good experience for me to see that people couldn't even verbalize the rules, but they were doing the right thing. And so that's a sense of internalizing rules that's really beautiful. You had a question, yeah?
Yeah,
and you,
what do you think about when you design the audio pads?
Oh, I can tell you exactly what we thought about. We wanted it to be like this TV series, The Prisoner. It's a television series from the 1960s that you brought up, right? And so we looked for a sound aesthetic that was playful, sort of like the graphics, you know, like, but not too playful in a kind of a twisted way, in a slightly twisted way. And the player, what's the movie called again? Prisoner. The Prisoner was just the right kind of feel. And then we thought about what kinds of sounds would be in Prisoner if this game were in Prisoner, and that's how we did that. So we emulated The Prisoner.
But they came after. In this situation, they came second. So we designed the gameplay elements. We had the game pretty much working physically how we wanted, and it was like, okay, what sound will we use for the bouncing off the board versus bouncing off the hoop versus the miss sound, and all of that came once we had the graphics in place, so we could slot it in and see whether it felt like it was working or not.
Did you have the prison bar motif before you made the?
No, that'd be great, like, yeah.
Oh, I mean the bars along the edge.
Oh, no.
Okay, you're doing really well.
Yeah.
Are you a dancer? No, but now you might be. Do you have another question?
Is there
And you?
a critical threshold where the rules become too abstract? Here, even though the rules aren't specified, you still have things like bouncing and falling and gravity. Very intuitive.
Well, yes, you want them to be. Well, we're simulating physical experiences here, and we're making that simulation internal through the strange interface. If rules become too abstract, people lose interest. It happens very quickly that rules become too confusing, and if you don't see the persistency of the rule, you don't think it's a rule. We had that problem with, I had a project called Oxygen Flute where you could enter into a chamber that I developed with Chris Chafe, and the growth chamber was like a greenhouse, and there was lots of bamboo in it, and there was a carbon dioxide sensor. And you could breathe, and when you exhaled, your breath's carbon dioxide was measured, and it was absorbed by the plants, and so the plants would turn the carbon dioxide into oxygen according to the carbon cycle. But then, of course, the longer you stayed, the less oxygen there was in there, because you consumed the oxygen while inhaling, and there was a sound feedback. There was a flute playing, and the flute played differently depending on what the carbon dioxide level was. And the sound was so sophisticated that people were thinking it was a recording that was playing. They didn't realize that they were doing it. And so the rules become too complicated precisely in the moment where you think you're not having the effect, where the rule is so complicated, you do something and you don't see the outcome. It's a very important test for the rule if it still gives you a sense of outcome.
Even non-intuitive outcomes.
Non-rational outcomes. Yeah. In other words, you're using non-intuitive the opposite way that I would use it. So I say intuitive outcomes validate rules, even if you can't verbalize them. Yeah. But you say non-intuitive as in it wouldn't quite make sense, but it makes sense not rationally, but in an embodied way. Okay. Yeah.
Do you think this kind of art game has with commercial games, like stuff that EA does?
Oh, the relationship is very simple. We don't need to make money with it. So we're free to explore things that we think might be interesting, even if not for commercial gain. And if everything that is developed for commercial gain, it all looks the same. But it's very important to do things for different motivations. And so that's how those games are different. They're driven by non-commercial motivations. They're driven by literally a desire to I guess, make people have a good time, number one, and become better people, I guess, and to address feelings that we had. Yes, 1, 2.
You
played it, so your question counts double.
All right. If I wanted to play more art games, how could I go about doing so?
Well, first of all, there's a large independent game community, and there's a conference called Independent Game Designers Conference, and it's usually in San Francisco, IDGA, Independent Game Designers Association, and they tend to develop more. They do some of this kind of stuff, but they tend to develop also more, online games and mods of existing games and stuff like that. But they're a really good group. And Louis von Ahn is a guy who makes interesting games for various motivations. And he's a computer scientist. You could look up his work.
Ido Stern.
Ido Stern did some nice hacks he did a very strange development of a game that is called Waco Resurrection, and where you get to be David Koresh, and you get to convert FBI agents to the belief of the...
He did a nice Tekken feedback game with shock.
Yes!
So
all right!
So in his Tekken game, when you would get hit, you would get shocked in the fighting games.
Electrical shock,
Electrical shock.
yeah.
But there's a movie coming out too called 8-Bit that Marcin Romaki directed, and it's a documentary about the people who are making games and art and the Game Boy music and 8-bit sort of scene in the art world. And that's actually debuting tonight at the MoMA in New York City. So you're probably going to miss that. But it's going to be coming to the, keep checking the Pacific Film Archive, because it's going to be playing there in the future. I've been bugging them about when, and I don't know yet, but it's coming. And I'm in it, so it's really exciting. Yeah.
Have you looked at all the new Nintendo sensor?
The Wii?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be curious to see how people develop for that, whether it's going to become, I mean, is it just going to be a toy? That's kind of funny. Is it just going to be a toy, or is it going to be something that you can, that the game community embraces? Because they do have commercial interests, right? And the people who are designing for that have to design something that, 12-year-olds want to buy. So, but it's interesting to see. I mean, it's interesting Nintendo's going the opposite direction. Sony and Xbox are having this big battle over hardware, and Sony and Nintendo is even their handheld has the 2 screens, and they're doing all these things that are like, okay, well let's try and go do another, not fight them on their own terms, which is I hope it works. I mean, just because there should be more people making video games. So.
The other concern, of course, is what kind of game are you going to play with the interface, and does the interface really embrace novel ideas, or is the interface really well exploited? The sense is that all games tend to converge on the topic of violence and in some cases sex, and that's a really sad convergence, but it's also one that reflects larger patterns in society, right? I can't do this and talk at the same time. Larger patterns of society that we're all really interested in violence, and therefore all the games look like that, and people who disavow this and are shocked are simply not honest. And if this new interface generates just sword fights and stuff, then we haven't learned anything yet, have we? But if it would, of course, I'm interested in balance and stuff like that. If you had to hold it really carefully, that'd be great. I'm also interested in an interface where we could take Mozart's magic flute and make it into a video game, where the flute becomes the tool with which you navigate the space, and you learn to play the flute like that. So
I'm looking forward to the sword fighting games.
All right.
Yeah, I have a vague recollection. About a year ago, I read an article about one of the Atari guys, Nolan Bushnell, I think, started Chuck E. Cheese. He's apparently starting some new chain, which is geared more towards adults, that features much simpler games. I mean, games that are designed specifically to create sort of social interactions where people can walk up, sit down, play them, and it's designed to be like an adult Chuck E. Cheese, sort of a place where people can come together and meet, and the games are a vehicle for that.
Yeah.
Have you
well, I know I've met him before, but maybe we should meet with him again and bring this little board along and tell him that.
This seems like you'd love this stuff.
Yeah. No, he's a great spirit that worked there. We should definitely follow up with that. Thanks. Yeah. Any other questions? Well, good.
Okay, thank you.
Let's call it a day. Thank you.
For information on other online Stanford seminars and courses, please visit study.stanford.edu.
The preceding program is copyrighted by Stanford University. Please visit us at stanford.edu.